This is a Swiss-made 200 meters dive watch with very good specs, and it only costs around $150. Those things don't usually go together. So the question is it any good? Swiss-made watches are notoriously expensive, and you might think that you can't have one on your wrist for a reasonable price, but you can. This is a watch by Wenger, a famous and respected brand in Switzerland for creating Swiss Army knives. But can they make a good watch? Wenger was founded in 1893. They saw instant success being chosen by the Swiss military to produce knives for combat, which they did for decades. Wenger began making watches in 1997, quickly establishing itself as a respected watchmaker in the industry. However, after the tragedy of 9/11, airport security clamped down on these tools being able to leave the country, also not being able to be sold at the airports, which saw a huge drop in sales for Wenger. Another huge Swiss knife manufacturer, Victorinox, bought out the Wenger company in 2005. In 2013, Wenger stopped the manufacture of its knives to solely focus on creating watches, which has since become a huge success. Wenger watches can now be found in high street shops, many respected online retailers, and they even hold a strong value in the second-hand market. So clearly Wenger have a rich history behind their brand. Yes, not for creating watches, but in the manufacturing industry nonetheless. So can this watch live up to that respect of their famous knives? The watch features full stainless steel construction with a brushed finish throughout. The original bracelet on the watch was awful, folded links and felt cheap. It will definitely have to be replaced with a 22mm leather or rubber strap for the full enjoyment of the piece. The 120 click unidirectional dive time bezel is stainless steel but has a ceramic look to it. The dial does feature lume, however for a dive watch it isn't the best I've seen. Aiding the 200 meters of water resistance is a large screw down crown with gigantic crown guards. There is plenty of detail on the dial. Horizontal indents in the center and a mixture of finishes on the outer dial. The indices are applied and look very uniform and neat. A date window is very nicely integrated at the 3 o'clock, blending in with the hour markers. The Wenger logo is printed above the pinion, and I love the minimalist approach to the text on the dial, something other divers don't achieve. The red second hand gives the watch a sportier look, matching nicely with the Wenger logo. And crucially, Swiss made printed at the bottom of the dial. The movement in the piece is a Swiss made quartz Ronda 515. So design wise, I think this watch works very well. It's simple yet functional. And yes, I do think it is lacking a little bit of that X factor, especially for a larger watch. I think sometimes in certain lightings it can look a little bit boring. But for everything good about this watch, I do think it has a couple of small problems. The Wenger Seaforce is a larger watch, coming in at 43mm in diameter, a 51mm lug to lug, and an 11.5mm thickness. This watch wears as its dimensions suggest, big on wrist but relatively thin. Due to its thickness, it can be just about pulled off on a smaller wrist. However, for me, it does wear too large for my preferences. One last problem with the watch is the crystal. Wenger boast about the sapphire coated crystal, which sounds great on first glance. However, I have only worn the watch a handful of times and I've already managed to get a scratch on it, something that my genuine full sapphire crystals don't struggle with. So overall, this is not a watch that I will be keeping in my collection. I do enjoy the design language and the functionality of the watch, and I think if this watch was a little bit smaller, let's say 39mm, then it would be one that I would keep around in my collection. However, that 51.5mm lug to lug is just too big for my wrist. I feel like I'm carrying a plate round on my wrist sometimes, and I'm scared of knocking somebody out with it if I give someone a hug. So it won't be one that's staying around in my collection, unfortunately. But that being said, if you are a larger guy, let's say 7.5 inch wrist and above, I think this watch will suit you really well, and I think you will really enjoy it. It has everything that a good dive watch needs. The bezel is really good, the screw down crown works really well, it has good lume on the hands. I mean, it's got everything that you need. It's got all of those things that you would expect, and for such a good price, it is a really good value proposition. And of course, Swiss made on the dial, which makes this thing even more special. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good day. If you are new to the channel, then do hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other videos too. You might like them. And okay, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.